Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2, and I have a video today to cover basic tea dyeing, some color dyeing, and some printing with dye. So three fun things that we all love to age our papers and make them unique for our journals. And so that's some basic things, some tips and tricks and things that have worked for me. So I'm going to show you all that today. So the first thing is the tea. I use tea. Some people use coffee. I'm not as familiar with using coffee, although I have used it. I've had guests who enjoyed coffee. So then when they leave, I take the coffee and use it to dye some paper. But mostly I use tea. So let me tell you what I use. I fill up a mug. This is for a small batch. I fill up a mug with water, and this mug holds about a cup and a fourth of water. I put 4 tea bags in it and let them steep. I put it, to warm the water, I just put it in the microwave for a minute and 15 or 20 seconds till it's nice and hot, and then I take it out. Put 4 tea bags in it, let it steep for 4 or 5 minutes, squeeze out the tea bags, and then I get my tea solution. And it is pretty strong. I'll show you some examples of that. So if you don't want it quite as dark, maybe you could start out with 2 tea bags in your cup. See if you like that color. If you don't think it's dark enough, add 3. And if you don't think it's dark enough, go ahead and jump to 4. So it's just kind of up to you. Before we start actually dipping the paper and me showing you that part of it, let me go over this. So as you can see, they're beautiful. I am using gloves. I don't like gloves. But if you tea stain even just a few sheets of paper, your fingers are going to turn brown, stained. And if you do a big batch of paper without using gloves, your fingers will be even more brown, and it takes days and days for the staining to come off. So I can't stand brown stained fingers, and I can't stand gloves, but I'm trying this glove thing because I hate brown stained fingers more than I hate gloves. So that's that. So one of the hardest things about the gloves is putting them on, So a trick I have for that is I take just a teaspoon or so of baking soda, sprinkle that on my hands and rub my fingers, rub it all over my hands before I put the gloves on. And then it makes, you slip your hands in there and it's magical. It works so well. So that's just a little trick on that. And I don't know. I know, right. Anyway, so I've got my tea solution and I just pour it into a shallow pan. So just pour that in there. And it is a little crooked because I have something underneath, but so anyway, you just take your paper. So this is regular copy paper, and it is 20 pound. Some people use a little higher weight paper, and that's perfectly fine. That's up to you. But this works fine for me, and so that's what I use. So I just slide it in to the tea and flip it over, and I don't flip it from the tiny corners or too close to the edge. So go ahead and just grab it about an inch down, pick it up, and then put it on another flat tray or pan. I missed a little corner, so I'm just going to rub some tea on there. And that's the way I do it. You can put wet paper on top of wet paper. You can. You just let it dry, and then they come right apart. So I'm going to show you. I'll dip another one. Just real simple. Oops, I missed some spots, so I'm going to dip that in. a little bit better. And then you just put it either right on top, kind of put it kittywampus if you want to make fun tea staining patterns. Like you can make, so it'll be, you know, darker in some spots. You might have a line here. You'll maybe have some bubbling and puckering, and that's what you want. You want just a little variation in your color. So, and I'm going to go ahead and put another one on. So I just make sure both sides are covered, lift it up, and then put it on. I wouldn't go higher than 2 or possibly 3 layers. Otherwise it does take quite a while to dry. So let's talk about drying. I usually air dry. So leave this overnight, leave it before you go to work, and when you get home or when you wake up, your paper should be dry. A lot of times I'll put it around my vent, and so I'll have trays of paper around my vent. You can bake it, and I have done that. Just make sure your oven is on a very low temperature, like 170. And you can slip this right in to the oven. It takes about 20-25 minutes to dry in the oven. Don't leave it in there too long because you will, the paper will become brittle. And don't, like, if you're in a real big hurry and you're thinking, well, I can put it on 350 and put it in and I'll watch it real carefully and I'll take it out. The higher temperature does make the paper brittle, and that's just something that I have noticed, and just a little heads up on that. So that's how you tea stain paper. Just straight up do it that way. There is another way I'm going to show you. You could line your tray with like a plastic sheet if you'd like to. The other way would be to have a plastic sheet all over your table, like a tarp or you know, a plastic that you would buy from the hardware store, or this is just a plastic bag. This is another way. So you would kind of, actually I just did this wrong. That's not what I was going to show you at all. I just had the tea here and it was habit. So let me put this out here. I'll just put it on here and I'll show you what I was going to truly show you. Just a second here. All right, this is what I was going to show you. You can lay paper. Oh goodness, you can lay paper on your plastic sheet, whatever you have, and you can paint. You can paint it with tea. Don't worry about doing the back, just paint it all over the place. Get all the surface covered. And then just leave it. You can put another one on top and do the same thing. That's to help you get your nice variation in colors, and also lets you do more sheets at the same time. All right, so just paint that on and then just let it sit there. Just let it sit there. Put this away. And that is another method, and it works perfectly well as well. I usually do the dipping, but this is a good alternative as well. So I have a pan underneath to help me lift this off. Okay. Good and good. Now I get to take my gloves off. Get to take my gloves off. Okay, so let's talk about some designs. Now that you'll have your wet paper. It'll be totally wet. Don't leave it till it's half dry and then try to make patterns in it, because it won't work. Let's go ahead and do these first. So here is an idea. I'm going to try to zoom in, guys. My camera doesn't cooperate very well, but we're going to. So I zoomed in. I had to leave, and then I zoomed in. So here we have just a simple ring that we made, that I made with my mug. So this paper will be nice and wet still. You'll put the mug on top and let it dry that way, and then when you take the mug off, you'll have this beautiful ring. And you could make another one as well, kind of make another little one offset. I think that would be really cute. There's one idea. Another idea for making a print in the paper is, or in the paper right in the tea dye, is using an object to lay on your wet paper. So I had these wood cutouts. I got this at Hobby Lobby. And I had a dragonfly right here. I hope you can see that. In real life, you can see it very well. I mean, it would be a beautiful journal page. And this, I had it running up this way just to experiment. So that was there. The dragonfly was here. Just let it sit there and let it dry. I think I did put something like a bottle of paint or something on here just to make sure that it was going to stay on the paper a good long time. So I did that, and I got these two little patterns there. It turned out so cute, I thought. Okay, this is from using a stencil. Here's the stencil, and I just love this. I love this. So this was an experiment, so I just like put it in the middle, but like your paper will be folded in half. So if you don't want like him right in the middle, you could move it over here and dry it on the side. If you could do it again if you had another stencil over here. But anyway, so that was just to show you how well a stencil will work. And there are so many different stencils that the variety for that is endless. Here's one more stencil. So for this one, the hard edge is going to be a fine look for that, I think. But for this one, you probably wouldn't necessarily want that square. So what I would do on a stencil like this one is make sure there's still a border, but cut out a circle around here, so that your pattern will be totally circular here. It will compromise your stencil a little bit. It will be more flimsy. But, you know, just take care with it and just lay it on your wet paper, and you'll have a beautiful pattern like that. These lines I made, I just laid the wet paper on my cooling rack, my kitchen cooling rack. So both of these designs, and it bleeds through to the other side. I thought that was kind of cool. I have heard of using corrugated to make lines, but I tried that and it didn't work for me. But it's worth experimenting some more because I think that's a cool idea. This was made using bubble wrap. I tried the bubble wrap. I tried laying this on top of bubble wrap, and I didn't have much success. It came out okay, but it wasn't as defined as this. This one was done by putting the bubble wrap over the top and just letting it dry. And now it does take a long time to dry because it's not porous. It's the plastic on top of here. And the only way it's drying is the air is getting in on the sides. So it does take a while to dry. But it's kind of fun, especially for a certain style or a certain type of journal. This is shelf paper, or shelf liner, I should say. Plastic, you know, the plastic kind with texture. So I just laid that on there to dry, and when I lifted it up, I had this beautiful pattern on here. I love it, and this would be fun. You could cut it into different shapes if you'd like, and I think that would be a cool thing to do too. Oh, before I get into that, I had a couple more to show you. Here's another one. This design here was done with a paper die. Oh, I couldn't find my rose, but this was in the set as well. It's the leaves. So you just lay your metal. It's a Thinlit, a regular Sizzix paper die, and you know, any shape and I just happened to have a rose that, and the leaves were all one shape, and so I just laid that on the wet paper, and when it's all dry, the rose showed up very, very well. So I thought that was fun. Here, you can make, you can lay colored paper on top of your wet paper and let it dry, and you will get bleeding. So you can, this was just like a little strip I experimented with, and just to show you, this was red cardstock, and it bled, the color bled through to the tea stained paper, and it's this pink. And this one was a blue paper that didn't bleed at all, but when I lifted it up, it had this cool, it almost looks like a piece of tape was on there, and it came off. So I thought that was kind of fun. Okay, this one, these are tea stained papers as well, and you can see that they are not. What I wanted to show you. So if you decide to bake your paper and you put some wet paper on your pan that's still hot, you get bubbling. You get this bubbling effect. And I like it. I think it's cool. But I just wanted to show you that. Okay, so these papers were done with fruit tea. So I bought the Celestial Seasonings fruit tea sampler, and I used the True Blueberry tea, sorry. And I got this really pretty cornflower blue color. It's like a lavender blue. Let's see if I can find. That's a pretty good example too. So isn't that pretty? I'll show you compared to white. So I love that, and it smells delicious. So if you can make that blueberry tea and not drink it, that's a trick. But anyway, so that was cool. This one was using, you can dye other types of paper. This was like an inexpensive notebook paper, and you can see the lines bled. But I think it's cool. It had other papers on top, so they bled through to the other papers underneath them or on top of them, depending on. So that's neat there. This is a little different color. It's a more greenish gray, and that was actually done using Wild Berry Zinger. And I thought, I also tried Black Cherry, and I thought that there would be this lovely pink color, but they did not come out pink. They came out grayish green. It's still pretty, but wasn't what I was expecting. Okay, the next thing I did was, I hope you can see this. This, I laid, it has a very, very fine print. These are doilies. There's another one there. And there's another one there. So the way I did these was with plastic placemats. You can use plastic placemats, doilies, or tablecloths, and you know, cut apart the designs. I just haven't had the heart to cut these apart yet, but I will once I figure it out. But so these are from the 50s, I believe, and you can get them on Etsy, Amazon, eBay, and they're just, you know, just a pliable sort of vinyl. And I guess they didn't want to, they liked the look of their doilies, but they didn't want to mess with the laundry. So somebody invented the plastic lace. So you have to make sure it has holes. Some of them are more like a fabric, sort of like some of these areas here. They're more like a fabric, and the tea won't get through there. But the larger holes, you know, the tea design comes through. And I just love this. Now this was an idea I got from Deborah's Paper Design. I'll leave her link below. Just seems like an adorable lady on that channel. So she has these gorgeous doily papers that she makes. So there's that idea. And the other thing I wanted to mention are some colored is some color dyeing. These two sheets here were done with tulip tie-dye, like for t-shirts, and they came in these bottles already prepared, and it was just left over from a tie-dye t-shirt. So I used the green, this is the red, and it turns out to be sort of a bright pink, but I wanted these bold colors. I used about half dye, half water solution, so if you wanted more pastel color, I would definitely experiment with adding just tiny amounts, teaspoons or tablespoons of dye into your water to make sure you don't get it too dark. But these bold colors were for a Christmas journal or two, and I wanted the darker. And they're still, you can still write on them. They're still, you know, journal worthy, or writing worthy, I should say. And I also have done KoolAid dyeing. So this is lemon lime, this is orange KoolAid, blue raspberry, and strawberry. And you can see the difference between these two. The strawberry is more of an orangey, peachish pink, and this is a more like hot pink. But I thought these colors were amazing. So they are the unsweetened little KoolAid packets. They're only about that big, and I added a whole packet to about a cup of water, and I got about 20 sheets. I also forgot to mention too, let me just leave these up for a minute. I did forget to mention how many sheets of paper. So in the beginning, my mug had 1 1/4 cups of tea in it, and that will make around 22-24 sheets of paper. So I wanted to mention that. Also, what do you do with these papers when they're done drying? Usually flatten them. You certainly don't have to. You can put them in your journal just the way they are, or you can iron them. I had a stack of paper to show you, and I can't find it right now, but you can iron them to make them a little flatter, to help the journal to close better and all that stuff. Or you can leave them if you want to. It's totally up to you. The way I flatten mine is to iron them. So I have my iron on a very hot temperature, and I just, you know, run the iron back and forth a few times, and it works perfectly. You can also put your papers in a stack and then lay a heavy book or object that, you know, that's gonna cover up the whole paper, cover up the entire sheet, and put that heavy object and leave it overnight, or go to work and come back, and the papers should be nice and flattened. So you can do either way. Or you can not flatten them if you don't want to. I prefer to have them flattened, so I do the ironing, but it's totally up to you. Totally up to you. So thank you for joining me today. This is part 1 in our tea dyeing and sort of paper decorating series of 2, I believe. So this is part 1. My sister Cindy will have part 2, and she has tips and tricks as well, how she does things, and she has some great ideas to share with you. So that's it for now, everybody. I will be sure to put Deborah's paper designs down below, and our information is down below as well. Check out our Etsy shop and our blog, and you are checking our YouTube channel right now. So thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.